Okay, so just last Friday, I had the great opportunity to do a track day at the Sepang International Go Kart Circuit. This is actually the first time that I had the opportunity to ride in the Go Kart circuit using my Supermoto FS450. It was organized by the guys over at Iron Horse. Kudos to them, they did a fantastic job. It's fun, great weather, start to finish. But while I was preparing for this track day, going through YouTube videos, I realized that there isn't really much in the way of resources regarding what the track characteristics are like, or how to ride it a particular way, or stuff like that. So I thought that since I did enjoy the track day, I went in there and I had guidance from a bunch of very capable people that I would try to share what I had learned that day in a video like this to help someone else who might want to come and do a track day here sometime in the future. So just to get a few things out of the way first, this is just meant to be like a fun track day guide from, I would say, a novice to maybe intermediate supermoto rider's perspective. That is me, of course. And I have chosen to brake and turn and accelerate at certain points in the track. And I have observed certain characteristics of the track, which I will share with you as well. But everything I tell you in this video is just meant to be a guide, something just for fun. If it helps you, great, but please do not take it as gospel. And at all times, do not ride above your limits. If you don't feel comfortable with the way I do anything, please don't follow it. Look after yourself first and foremost. Stay safe. That's the most important thing about any track day. Okay, so before we move to the corner-by-corner analysis, I would like to talk about the entire track itself. And overall, I think that the Sepang Go Kart track is really a fantastic circuit. The surface conditions are, in most areas, excellent. There is very little in the way of elevation changes, unlike circuits like Tangkak in Johor, for example. So you can just basically take it as a flat circuit. You don't have to account for elevation in any of your markers as far as braking, turning, or accelerating is concerned. Likewise, the tarmac quality is very high. I would say it is just as good as the main MotoGP circuit, if not better, except for certain areas, which I will talk about later. The overall quality of the circuit is really, really good. That includes not only the tarmac, but stuff like the curbing, which is very well maintained. And there is quite a fair bit of space, I would say, for a supermoto circuit. You could almost call it a bit of a hybrid circuit, where it is also kind of catered to smaller sport bikes as well. Alright, so I had a wonderful opportunity to be led by Rosaidi Karim, a good friend of mine, a very experienced racer on this circuit. You can see him in front of me. You'll see him featured quite a bit during this video. I'm just going to pause it here and start the turn-by-turn analysis. So this is the main straight, the longest one by far. Very wide, plenty of space, giving you the illusion that you're not going as fast as you think. So as always, with all main straights, a bit of caution is advised when selecting your braking marker for the first and second corner, which are kind of interlinked on this circuit. So going forward a little bit, past the start-finish line over here, you will see turn number 1 right towards the end. And not long after that is turn number 2. Now, taking it is a little bit of, I would say, a trick. Because how I personally see it is that you should basically just ignore turn number 1. Because turn number 1 is basically nothing other than a kink. And any kind of braking that you wish to do will still be fine, even with that slight lean angle that you might have while preparing for turn number 2. So I'm just going to roll it forward a little bit. So you can see Rosaidi in front of me, he basically ignores the apex for turn 1, and so have I really. I think that the general plan or the general idea here is that you are planning to take turn 2 in the best possible way rather than turn 1. So don't try to clip the apex for turn 1, because if you do that, you set yourself up rather badly for turn 2. So let's go in a little further. Right. So come in a little bit wide here. I think personally, from my learning value, I think I could have come in a little bit wider even. This is just for track day purposes. If it was a race, I would be leaving the door wide open for someone to come in on the inside. But just for running a good lap time, I think coming in a little bit wider here would have worked better. And then we are looking to clip the turn 2 apex like that. Not much to say here. Over here, it's basically just a short straight over to a switch back over to a left-hand turn. So try to get on the full gas at this section here. Don't just coast on half throttle or low throttle openings. Get on full gas, hit your brake marker, and get the bike turned in. So at this point, I would like to point out that behind me as well, there's another very fast rider, Alan. He rides more of a Supermoto style, so he'll have his leg out at corners like this. And I think actually in these sections where you have the right and the left, which we have a few of on this track, being able to turn the bike quickly with your leg out is a bit more of an advantage than riding sport bike style like Rosaidi and I are doing. Alright, on the track map, you'll see that probably this qualifies as like the second longest straight on the track, but I wouldn't say that it's very long. So coming up here, I've been in third gear all this while as far as the cornering is concerned. So I take almost every corner here in third gear except for one, I think, which I'll talk about later. So coming out of here in third gear, I switch up to fourth and kind of drag it out a little bit, but I think you could go up to fifth if you wanted to, and if you were daring enough to brake quite a bit later. So let's go up the straight here. So I'm in fourth gear. I could probably have gone up to fifth. I already started to close the throttle and brake. I think this is too early. Personally, I think around here would be a better spot to start braking and downshifting to third gear. So stay wide. It's a tight corner. Get into the apex and gas out. Try to get on full gas. This is again a very short, there is no straight. It's basically a right and a left. But try to get on full gas before you make the left turn. That'll keep your speed up. Right, so here, this is the only corner on the track where I switch from a sport bike style to a sport bike knee out style to a leg out style. Simply because it just makes the turning so much easier. So turning left here, I've got my leg out. It works better because the speed is very slow. And at the same time, I'm able to turn a bit quicker from the previous corner. So get on the gas quickly and short shift it from third to fourth around here, because you have to prepare yourself for the next right-hander that's coming up. Okay, so that's the short shift. Now, this is a kind of a long, higher speed right-hander at a low RPM. And this is the second caution I'm going to issue for this track, in that on an otherwise unblemished surface, some flaws do exist. So I'm just going to pause the video. I'm going to bring the cursor around here, and just, you can see these little black uneven markings. Okay, this part is a little bit tricky. So if you get yourself on the gas a little bit too soon and you're off the apex, and you find yourself going over this section here, and you get a little bit too, shall we say, enthusiastic with the gas, you're going to find the rear end stepping out quite a bit. I think Alan, who is behind me here, lost the rear a little bit on here. So just keep your eyes on him over here, and you'll see what I mean. So you can tell that he's obviously slightly off the apex here. He's run a little bit wide, basically over these markings, and see what happens next. You see that there? Basically, he kind of lost the rear a little bit. I'll bring it back for you just so you can see that. Alright, just take a good look at him again. As he runs over that section and gets on the gas, the rear steps out. So if you're not careful, you can get in a bit of trouble there. I did notice during the track day that quite a few guys on the smaller sport bikes, maybe more of the novice riders, they kind of they crashed at this section. They basically overran this corner and ended up on the left side of the tire wall. I saw multiple bikes do that. So I think that losing the rear and not knowing how to deal with it at that portion can cause something like that to happen. Basically, it steps out, they panic, and they just overrun the corner and just end up on the side, on the left side at the tire wall. So do be careful. Open the gas a little bit more conservatively in that section until you get comfortable with how the tarmac feels over there. The truth is, it only shakes the bike a little bit. Once you get off the black section and the tires start gripping again, everything comes back to normal. So past that right-hander, we head for another right-hander, a slow speed one. I was in fourth gear at that point. I dropped to third. I think a good braking point would be somewhere just here. I'll work on that for the next track day, but right now I'm braking a little bit earlier than that. Stay wide because it is a tight corner. Clip the apex as best you can. And get on the gas nice and early. Likewise here, this one is a little bit harder than the previous one, this left-hander. Firstly, you have to change direction. Secondly, you will be accelerating, but I didn't find myself fast enough to need to use the brake for the left-hand turn here. So what happened was there was not enough weight transfer on the front because I'm not trail braking. That makes the bike a little bit harder to turn. So it does tend to run a little bit wide here, but you do want to get on the gas as early as you can. Get the bike pointed in the correct direction as early as you can, because there is a bit of a distance to run here, and that can give you some lap time if you can get on the gas nice and early. So right here it's a bit harder to turn, but once you're clear, get on the gas quick, pick up the bike, shift up to 4th gear. That's 4th gear. Alright, people tend to close the throttle and start braking a little bit too soon in this corner. If you look closely, I'm going to move the camera forward. Right, on the ground here, just before Rosadi, you can see a bunch of tire marks on the ground. I think these are good references for braking zones, and that the reason why the tire marks exist in the first place is because guys have been braking really hard right here. So what I did when I first came to this track was I used the initial portion of the tire marks as my brake marker. However, now on hindsight, I think that I could push a little bit forward, maybe brake around here, and still make the turn. So this right-hander is a bit like 2 corners ago, where you had a high-speed right followed by a slow, tight right. So it's basically taken the same way. Stay nice and wide. Clip the apex right in the middle, get on the gas nice and early, and then set yourself up for another left-hand turn, just like before. Again, I didn't find myself fast enough to want to use the front brake, so that made the bike a little bit harder to turn. Yeah, you might find yourself needing to just tap the front brake just a little bit to get the bike pointed in the correct direction, but other than that, it's pretty much the same thing. And again, you want to stand the bike up nice and early and shoot right past this apex over here, straight to the other apex. So try to not make this section too much of an S-curve. Try to turn it into a straight. Get up to 4th gear quick, point it at the second apex right to the left of where Rosadi is headed. And don't take this portion, the final corner, as a long U-shape. Rather, what I prefer to do is take it as a V-shape entry, where I clip the apex first nice and early, trail brake as hard as I can, and then get really slow in the middle of the corner, get the bike pointed the right way out for the long straight, and then just get on the gas. So I'm still braking at this point, and I want to bring up my last caution for this track, which is this section here. These little black marks interspaced by clean tarmac. This is pretty much the same thing as the right-hander that we had before, where Alan, who was behind me, lost the rear a little bit. When you trail brake onto this section here, which is a little bit off from the apex, you will feel the front end chatter. So when I was riding here and I was trail braking into this section, I did get quite a bit of chatter from the front end, but I did not lose any grip. So the bike continued to stay on the chosen line. I still was on the brakes and the bike continued to turn. So that part was fine. I didn't lose the front at all. So, but if you're not used to the feeling of the front chattering under trail braking, this may disconcert you a little bit. If your tires are good, your suspension is well set up, I don't think there's any cause to worry. Just be careful. So yeah, if you stay close to the apex, around here, you shouldn't feel it at all. So Rosadi, as you can see, has just gone over it a little bit. I'm not sure if you felt anything there at the time. But for me, in my particular line on this particular corner, I avoided it. So get the bike pointed out. Around here, you probably want to see yourself getting onto full gas. The reason for that is because you have plenty of space on the left to run wide and maximize your speed on the one and only long straight on this track. So get on full gas nice and early, get up to 5th gear for me, in my case at least, and start the whole lap again, braking for the turn 2 apex rather than turn 1. So that's basically my thoughts on this track. I hope that I can improve it, improve my riding at least in the future. Right now, I managed to do a best lap time of just under 57 seconds, so 56.9. I'm very happy with that result, being that this is my first time ever on this track. I hope to get the lap time down to 55 or maybe even 54 seconds over the long term if I have a chance to come back here. In the meantime, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it's been useful. So thanks again for watching, and I'll leave this video with my best lap of the day, which was 56.9. See you guys next time.